English version of Jai Jagat. Is it all right for everybody that we're recording? Yeah. Okay. We thought we would start with the English version of Jai Jagat, which is sung by a young rock musician. It's a contemporary version. And what was so interesting is a week ago, we had a cultural evening where we did the field version, the grassroots version of Jai Jagat in Hindi. Then Khurana from Rajasthan did a version of Jai Jagat. And then we had a modern contemporary version. So these are all innovations on the Jai Jagat. And we thought we would just start, if you would, it's a few minutes long, and we'll start with that before we begin. Wonderful. So Gary, over to you.
Sing along, Jai Jagat, call along, Jai Jagat. Sing along, Jai Jagat, call along, Jai Jagat. For peace let the souls come alive, for justice and joy come alive. Sing along, Jai Jagat, call along, Jai Jagat. Sing along, Jai Jagat, call along, Jai Jagat. Be the call of love, let love be in all. Victory to the world and no one to be lost. Be the call of love, let love be in all. Victory to the world and no one to be lost. Let color be no bar, let caste be no bar. Let love be the need of our, let the love for all be the bar. Winds of peace shall blow around, we shall all now sing along. Let the sun of love be strong, let the night of hate be gone. Let the night of hate be gone. Sing along, Jai Jagat, call along, Jai Jagat. Let the souls come alive, for justice and joy come alive. Sing along, Jai Jagat, call along, Jai Jagat. Sing along, Jai Jagat, call along, Jai Jagat.
And thank you, Push. And I just want to introduce you to Gary. Gary, can you turn on your, Gary is there. He is the writer of that song and his brother is the singer. And we're so fortunate to have so much talent among us to do that. So I hope all of you will send a copy to all of you of this song. In beginning, I just want to say we have an incredible group of people here today to talk about sustainable peace from an international perspective. And I know Kurt is from Germany. You just heard him speak, and Shanta is from the US, Leanne is from Canada, Pushpanath is from the UK, and we have other friends, many friends joining us from different places. And we're just so happy. I'm just looking at the list. Many friends from, of course, Kerala, across India, to really sit and think about or explore sustainable peace. And I just wanted to say that in deepening our understanding, sustainable peace builds really on groups that do not sanction violence. And where there is in-group and out-group tensions, sustainable peace builders really come in to build mutual respect, and even when there are perceived differences. And what we often say is we're willing to agree to disagree, but still work together and dialogue. I think when I reflect on Gandhi's writings on nonviolence in terms of his interest in building a plural society, whether it was Hindu-Muslim relations, whether it was in terms of Harijans within a caste-based society, or whether it was with the upliftment of women, pluralism was a marker of a civilized society. And in his education programs, I think what is so interesting is the threefold distinction that Gandhi made in terms of autonomy, Swaraj, personal autonomy, autonomy of group members, but also collective autonomy. And this autonomy required harmonizing the person's individual harmony with the group harmony. And at best, it was peaceful coexistence. At worst, it was preempting conflict. And it seems to me that Gandhi extended this notion to other groups, that one group extended this autonomy, sense of autonomy to other groups in larger and larger formations in building a society based on Sarvodaya, or what we might call sustainable peace, or the ability through Sarvodaya to attain a sustainable peace. So sustainable peace builders, like some that really we're going to profile today in terms of their work, continually lay pathways to positive peace. And I emphasize continually because there's always conflict. And so peace is a continuous process that is committed to a vision of peace. So in these various discussions today that we're going to have, presentations we're going to have, is really an array of different pathways of building positive peace. What is interesting is that these are all from different parts of the world. Each person is going to share experiences from different countries. And I think the hope was to feed each other in their work in different countries. The host, really the host, but he's so humble he won't say he's the host, is Father Scaria from the People's Movement for Peace in Kerala. This seminar was really designed by the People's Movement for Peace to see their work in an international context, and for others to see their work in relation to the People's Movement for Peace. And Father Scaria Kaloor will be our first speaker, and the People's Movement for Peace is really about how a city that was racked by violence, political violence, what we would say is inter-political party rivalry, led to the death of more than 200 young people, young party workers. And it was through a 60-member organization brought together, of which Rajgopal played an absolutely significant part with Father Scaria. They were able to bring down the violence over a number of years. And this really shows that sustainable peace is possible, even in the most egregious situations. We also will be hearing from Shanta Premvardana. I hope I've pronounced your name correctly, Shanta. What is so remarkable about Shanta's name is he has both peace and love in his name. And Shanta is from the Omnia Contextual Leadership Program in the US. He has been working for years and years with people on peacemaking, but has recently changed the name and the focus a couple of years ago to Omnia, all present contextual leadership, which is facilitating interfaith peacemaker teams at the community level across very diverse cultural and religious traditions in Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, Nigeria, Uganda, and other places. And we really look forward to his presentation as well today. The third speaker is Leanne McKenna. Leanne is incredibly, she's just an amazing woman who I have deeply admired for many, many years. She runs an NGO in Canada called Partera. It's an organization which catalyzes peace and through conflict transformation, nonviolent action, in a number, particularly in relation to economic violence, religious violence, and significantly gender violence. And she works in a number of countries. She's done a lot of work in South Sudan during that conflict, and in Nagaland, in Colombia, in Mexico, and so forth. The fourth speaker today is Pushpanath. Pushpanath is, well, he's an incredibly special human being. He hails from Bangalore. He's of Tamil origin, so he breaks into Tamil song very easily, very frequently. He's an amazing force at the grassroots. He's been working with Oxfam. He worked with Oxfam for many, many years, particularly on opening the whole fair trade markets. And I remember his just sterling work on helping small coffee producers in southern India. He also has conducted a huge, he's worked on ecology and climate justice. And in touching the grassroots, he's used foot marches, as has Rajgopal and Ektaparishad. Pushpanath has used foot marches to really get his message out to people across large areas. He is walking, if anyone would like to join him, from London to Glasgow in October before the COP26 to really bring the grassroots to this UN process on climate change. We also will hear from Kurt Lukart. Kurt has been doing a lot of work on civil security, trying to move from army to civil security, the Shanti Sena, in fact, as we know it from Vinoba Bhave and the Gandhian tradition in India. I think the Germans are leaders in this. There's civilian workers that try to try to act to bring peace and not just defense. And so we'll also hear from Kurt. And towards the end, we're going to get some reflections from Rebbe Matthews, Raju, Rince Raju, and of course, we're going to end our evening with a reflection from our dear Rajgopal, who probably Brooks little introduction, except to say that he's also one of the inspirations why many of us have got into the peace field in the beginning. With that, I want to open the program and thank all of you to be here. And we look forward, if you could put your comments into the chat as we go along. I will make sure that we try to introduce your comments as best as we can. So without further ado, I'm wondering if we can now turn to Father Scaria, Kaloor, and he has a PowerPoint, which I'm hoping Gary will put up at his request. Yeah, Father Scaria. You just unmute there. I think you're muted. Yeah, great.
Hello, can you hear me? Hello, Jill, can you hear?
Yes, we can hear you, Father.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, thank you, thank you. Yes. Peace to all, and good evening for us in this part of the world, and good morning to Jill and company, the other parts of the world, other part of the world. And my dear Jill, the co-panelist Elian, Pushpanath Krishnamurti, Shanda, and Father Rebbe Matthew, Rins Raju, and Anish Tilingiri, and my Guru Rajagopalji. So good evening to all, and also dear my peace, People's Movement for Peace, our core committee members, and all the participants. It's we started this as this is a third conference in a series which we framed together, Peace Assembly 21. First, we had the first assembly was at the state level, Kerala based. The second was at the national level of Indian level. And the third is at the international level. It was actually Rajaji who brought this idea. And then we, with the help of EGDA and several other organizations, we decided to hold it. And we have reached to this moment. The famous speaker and the writer, Raymond Panikkar, an Indo-Spanish writer, he said, we live in a world of glocal age. He coined this term, glocal, which means global and local. We cannot think of a universal reality. You can think of a universal idea up in the air, but the universal reality has to be rooted somewhere at a corner of the world, somewhere at a family, at a context. And what we are having today is this glocal peace gathering. Local initiatives from different corners of the world coming together and making a global reality. So it is a process of learning, appreciating, understanding, and sharing. So with these just brief words, I would like to go to the PowerPoint presentation. So can Gary just show the PowerPoint? Yes. Now here you find People's Movement for Peace. And this is an organization that we started to promote peace in Kannur. Can you just go to the, can go a little faster, next one. Next slide, please. Yeah, our location, please, since it's a world conference, I thought it would be nice to locate. So you find the map of India and the down, you find a red marked at the corner, Kerala, the state, and at the northern part you find Kannur. Next, please. Now, what's the context? Why we started this? As Jill mentioned earlier, it's a politically very disturbed area. For 7 decades, we had violence, over 320 deaths recorded. 9,000 people were either convicted or accused as per the government records. 10,000 families affected. And innumerable working days lost due to strike, or which we call hartal. And Kannur became synonym with violence. This is the context where we started this program. Please, next. Next slide. Yeah, of course. It's there have been several peace initiatives before, but a concentrated, systematic peace movement we started under the guidance of Rajagopalji. Now, for that, we started, first thing what we did was to form a committee of dedicated people, and this is called the core committee members from different walks of life. We are 15 of us leading this big program here in Kannur. Next. And then what we did was to join together with the similar organizations. So Ekta Parishad, Peace and Harmony Foundation, Art of Living, Malabar Vikasana Samiti, NYP, Humanist Movement, Wake, Disha, Sarvodaya Mandalam, and Youth Peace Forum. We agreed to work together. All these organizations combined together. We said we all work. We have our identity, but we will work for peace together. Okay. So how we proceed? Peace building process. We called it a peace building process. We had 3 areas. First, we started peace building at the socio-political level. Then next, peace building at the interreligious level, and peace building at the institutional level. And we'll go one by one. So at the socio-political, interreligious, and at the institutional level, please. So at the political level, first one. What we did, peace building is not a single event or an action. No, before us, there had been a number of people who were engaged in peace building, but all thing was always, it was like, when there's a firefight, when they fire, you call a fire brigade and finish it, and then it's over. But we shifted the focus. It's a continuous, non-violent, participatory, multi-dimensional building up process. And this is what we are trying to realize here. First thing what we did was to visit the victim's family. This is very important in the controlling the violence. What are the objectives? First of all, to know the reality and stand by the side of the victim, and to understand the human side of violence, and then take the true story to the public. So this was because always the media presentation is often biased with their own perspective. So this is what we did. So visiting the family was the first step. Proceed. And then we called local peace committees were formed. And at every locality where there is a violence issue, then we would call a committee will be formed comprising of different political party leaders and all the public. Next. And then next week, what we did was take the story to the media, to the local papers. We don't approve this violence, so we need to work together. So we took the story to the media. Next. Yeah, then we took several, propagation measures, and this is one of that, and Rahimast was one of our leaders. Next, you can just show, next one. And this is how the physically, you say politically, we just made it a division between political and social. So at the social level, how we did. This was an important thing that we, namely road shows for peace. We involved youth, we involved the public, and then we had several road shows condemning the violence and asking people to join for peace. And this is part of that. Your college youth were involved, and then we proceed. So part of that. And next is peace rallies. We held several peace rallies. We have organized several peace rallies throughout the towns and villages of conflicts. You can go a bit faster. And this is an important thing, preventive step. When you find a repetitive violence, we used to organize a preventive step in view of controlling, stopping the violence. And this is another important event that we did, namely meeting with the political leaders and government officials, paper reporters, all people, the heads we used to gather at a hotel and then have a detailed discussion. How can we bring peace back and how can we focus on development? And then this is, I think, an important dimension of our attempt was Gandhian way of fasting and prayer for peace. We would involve every people in the local, in the town centers, call people and have a prayer gathering for peace. And next was the state level peace conventions. We had several of that. Rajaji, this is Jai Jagat Yatra. We want to give a big send off, and Rajaji was there to inaugurate that. It's part of that. And this is art for peace. Peace through dance and music. And you find this is, I find the best way to communicate or bring peace, build up peace is through art forms. You find there, students are painting peace. The other side, you find musicians playing, and then a stage show. And again, women groups were also involved very much. You see 120 women dancing for peace. And so one of the beautiful things, we got them involved very much. Because women and children suffer very much in this. Okay. Now these are at the socio-political level. Next is at the institutional level. So peace building process, we called it PBP. PBP at the 3 levels in the schools. We started, first one is to sow the seed, class 5 to 10, and then grow the plant, class 10 to 12, and bearing fruit, like the growth of a tree. We plant that way. At the college and university level youth. Let's see how we started. So, as I mentioned, art attracts students. And we had several of interesting, innovative ways of getting students' attention. Our our methodology was information, formation, and transformation. Inform the students about the situation, and then form them, and then transform them. For that, an important element that we added was inner peace meditation. You find that in that picture, students in the class are meditating, and a teacher is, a student teacher is guiding that. And then cultural competitions, peace clubs, these were the means we adopted. Next. Now, what are the important things we did? Jill, you should stop me when the time is up, please. Hello? So establishing peace clubs, again, giving training for students. We created a, peace format, and then cultural competitions with the peace as theme, and also street dramas. Then people were asked to take non-violent oath on every assembly day. Also publish the stories and creative ideas through publication. We had a peace web. Then reward the students with certificates. One student who left this college, he said he got a job at a company because he showed this. They asked him, what is the certificate? He said, I'm a peace activist. On that basis, he was given the job at that bank. And then organized peace training camps, intercollegiate training camps we conducted several times. Then yearly peace festival, that was a wonderful thing. And a day it is dedicated. And then give exposure to select students at the national peace events. Then appoint a peace animator for every institution and reward the teachers with certificates and awards. Yeah, you can just go next. And this is one just to give you an example of peace club at the Vimal Jyoti Engineering College. Now, one who is going to share a reflection today, Rins, was the first member of our peace club that we started in 2012 at the college. I think you'd be interested to listen to him. Okay, next. So these are peace clubs. Interesting thing, you see at my left and right, and without my habit, you find a Muslim girl with her head covered, and the left side you find a Hindu boy who has taken an oath to go to Sabrimala. It's a beautiful celebration of peace with this interreligious community. Next. Now, street play, as I mentioned, this is one of the very powerful thing that we did. We staged a Gandhi drama recently, and going to 52 institutions and communicated the message of peace and Mahatma Gandhi to 50,000 students last year just before the outbreak of this corona. Please. Yeah, that's the pictures of the same. Okay. And then Peacenik was rewarding the students. You can just take the next. So this is rewarding the student for their wonderful performance. So a best peacemaker award. Yes, Rajagopal is distributing the award. And this is a publication which is called Peace Web, where we used to publish the stories of the students. Next. Yeah, this is a police officer giving the awards of the students. And then peace, this is another important dimension. I think in India, we need to focus peace at the inter-religious level, involve the religious heads and call them for meetings, try to be a builder of peace among them. Just next. So it's an interreligious prayer gathering we had, Christians, Hindus, and Muslims, all people together. Yes. Proceed. And this is the last thing, peace building process at the virtual platform. And recently we had several gatherings for students, competitions, quiz competitions, cultural events, and short film competitions, all for peace building. Okay, just final. Okay, now this is what I want to show, the methodology that we have, peace building process, PBP, that we do at 4 levels. At the socio-political level, you find the colored by that colors, socio-political level, at the institutional level, interreligious level, and virtual platforms. And all that I had been narrated is put in short forms there. If you want, you can get the copy of this later. This is what we had been doing. And this is the organizational structure. We have the core group, and then there are the collaboration of organizations. That means 9 organizations. Then another important thing is networking with. I think this is also very, very important. So we have a state level and networking, also national level networking. So state level, we have Nidhi Vedi of Wayanad, and then College of PKM College, Madambam and UC College Alva. And then at the national level, we have the Peace Channel, Dimapur, Nagaland. Father Anto is there. So this is in short what we are doing. Since the time is very short, I'm just winding up. Thank you so much. And I look forward for a better collaboration. As I just mentioned in the beginning, we need to be global, connecting local initiatives at a global level. And then the global coming back to every local. Like as we are having here locally, I invite you to be part of it. And as we would be liking to be part of you. So this way, let us build up a global peace community. Thank you, Jill. Thank you, Rajaji. Thank you, all the participants.
Thank you, Father Scaria. I think we'll never forget Global after this wonderful presentation. And I just want to draw your attention to how much work went in with so many students and organizations, Father Scaria, bringing so many organizations together across religious, across different parts of Kerala that, as you know, are broken up by so many different districts and religious traditions. So thank you, Father. Thank you very much. Before we move to Shanta, Shanta, I just want to recognize Anish Tilankari, who I forgot to mention at the beginning, who is one of the conveners of Ekta Parishad. And we'll also hear from Anish at the end, as Ekta Parishad has played a very important role, not only in this seminar, but in the peace movement across the country. So if we could now turn to Shanta Premvardhana. Shanta, the floor is yours. Having now introduced you, please go ahead.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jill, and good morning, everybody from Chicago. It is good evening for you. Namaste. It is lovely to be here with you, Rajaji. I have so much respect for you and the work that you do, so it is a great privilege for me to be here with you and these friends. Of course, building sustainable peace is what we are all about and a critical need for our time. My work is with an organization called Omnia Institute for Contextual Leadership. If you want to check us out, you might go to omnialeadership.org. Omnialeadership.org is what will get you to our website, and there's a good amount of information there. I also invite you to communicate with me directly. That's my first name, Shanta, Shanta, at omnialeadership.org. As Jill alluded earlier, I have a hard name to live up to, as you all understand. But with your help, I try. There's no other way that I could live. The work of Omnia Institute begins with the way we think theologically. This is important for us to understand. And sustainable peace, I think, requires that. I have been very involved in the interreligious dialogue work for all my career, including in the ecumenical movement, the Christian ecumenical movement. I directed the program of interreligious dialogue and cooperation at the World Council of Churches prior to coming back to Chicago for undertaking this work. So the question of how we think theologically is important because we have somehow assumed that what we typically called received theologies, that is, theologies or religious understanding that we've got from the past, from top down, is valid and appropriate. And of course, some of it is valid and appropriate and is conducive to peace. But if you think carefully, deeply, you understand that some of it is quite antithetical to peace. It goes quite against peace. So how do you shift the conversation? You shift it by shifting the question, by asking not questions about things that are beyond our understanding, but the questions that ordinary people in our communities are asking every day. What am I going to eat tomorrow? How am I going to get a job? How will I fix my house? How will I take care of my child who is sick? All of those are questions that are of immediate, urgent, existential value. If you begin the question there, then it is very easy for Hindus and Muslims, Christians and Buddhists, Jews and Baha'is and everybody else to come together and say, let's find an answer to that question. How will people with no land rights in India get land rights? That brings everybody of goodwill together. That's the contextual approach rather than the received approach. That's the contextual approach. So it's important to recognize that it's important, and it's also important to recognize while sustainable peace requires institutions, sometimes you have to push the institutions to get beyond its paradigmatic boundaries, its walls that it's created around itself, and use people who are sort of in the margins of religious traditions in order to get that, to get to the right people. So this is an important recognition for us to make. My organization trained Christian pastors in thinking contextually. This is why we call ourselves contextual leadership. But then very quickly we decided that as we began with Christian seminaries, we thought that we need to take that question out into the community to all religious leaders, and not only religious leaders in terms of clergy, but people of goodwill, people who are people of faith, who actually do this kind of work every single day in their communities. And so what very quickly began was what we began to call interfaith peacemaker teams. We asked ourselves the question, where are some of the most difficult questions that arise in terms of how we address interfaith relationships? And we quickly came to understand that in many places around the world, we have what we call religious extremism. One of those is in a place like northeastern Nigeria. You have organizations like Boko Haram that present themselves as Islamic organizations, but they are in fact brutal, violent organizations. In similar ways, there are many others, including Buddhist extremism that has arisen in Sri Lanka, Hindu extremism that has arisen in India, and in many other parts of the world, there are religious extremisms that's going on. Interfaith peacemaker teams bring people together to close the gap between religious traditions, which has been closed because of received theologies. See, received theologies have this exclusivity thing and supremacy that is going for them. So to bring them out and help them understand that if you start with the contextual question, then Muslims and Christians, Hindus and Buddhists and Jews and Baha'is, all of them, Sikhs and Jains, we all can do something together based on that question, changes everything. We have today 156 interfaith peacemaker teams in 4 different countries now, in Nigeria, in the Northeast, in Sri Lanka, in Bangladesh, and Uganda, most recently. Each of these teams is about 20 religious leaders, clergy people and lay people. They are all trained in the best practices of interreligious dialogue, but also in the traditions of power building. Power building requires people to build relationships with people in their community for organizing people and to organize money. Those are 2 ingredients that go into building power. Without building power, there isn't a whole lot that you can do. And so collaboration is the first thing of bringing people together to collaborate across traditions. Second thing is to build power. And third thing is to act strategically on issues that arise from the ground, from the context in their communities. And we want to help people understand that there are only some things they can do that depends on the amount of power that they have. So they need to have a clear-eyed understanding of how much power they have, according to which they can act. So they will act only on issues that are urgent, relevant, and winnable. Once they win some in the community, then they can go ahead and win larger victories. That's the theory of that. What we have seen happen is that as religious people come together from different religions and do this kind of thing, the gap that existed between Christians and Muslims in Nigeria, or the gap that exists between Buddhists and Muslims in Sri Lanka, reduces. And as the gap reduces, toleration for extremism reduces, and the possibility of pluralism increases. There are, of course, many ways of building power. What we heard from Father Scaria is one of those. This is our method, and our method is to increase the number of IP teams, what we call them IP teams, in different parts of the world, so that they are able to work locally in their communities in order to build strong, sustainable peace movements. The interesting thing is this: once you get a solid base, a critical mass of interfaith peacemaker teams in a particular community, you are going to see how the level of violence decreases. And we are seeing this already in Nigeria, where there's the largest number of interfaith peacemaker teams. and how our ability to actually work together and make things happen in that community increases, and that you can undertake larger and bigger projects and and initiatives, because now you have a much greater opportunity. I think that there is, I may be out of time. I would love to tell you lots of stories about this. There are lots of stories. Jill, perhaps I might take 2 minutes to tell you one.
Yeah, Shanta, please do, but also be aware that people are still confused by what you mean by power building. So if the story includes that, that's...
There are two, yes, we all build power. Father Scaria's story is about building power, although we don't think about it that way. We think about power as a wrong or a bad thing and an evil thing. I must suggest to you that that our colonial masters thought that it was very important to tell us that we should think that power is a bad thing, because then they could have all the power. This is a myth. Power is important. This is what Gandhiji did in all of his movements. When he brought people together for the Padayatras, what Rajaji is doing now is building power. Millions of people walking together for miles and miles to ask for land rights is an exercise in organized power. That is what makes change possible. But if you don't do that in the local community and are disciplined about how to make that happen, it won't very easily happen. It won't easily sustain itself. So this is what I mean. I can give, I'm afraid we are running out of time, so I won't be able to tell you a whole lot. The question arises out of a tradition called community organizing that was built in Chicago in the 1940s, which basically says building power requires two things: organized people and organized money. And once you have those two things, you can actually begin to build something that can last. It has to be very disciplined. These are public disciplines we are talking about. And unless you are disciplined in making that happen, and you do that by building one-on-one relationships to understand each other's self-interest. When self-interests align, you actually can make something happen. Here's a quick story. Two women in Nigeria had a one-on-one conversation. One was a Christian, the other was a Muslim. They decided that when they go back into their community, they are going to tell the other women in their community, in their village, to have such conversations between Christians and Muslims. Remember, in that part of the world, there has been a long-standing antagonism between Christians and Muslims. And so when I went 3 months or so later to that village, 11 pairs of women came together and said, we've already done one-on-one relationship building between Christians and Muslims. What do we do next? I encouraged them to continue to do that and get others to do that. In 6 months later, there were 120 of them. And they said, now what do we do? Because they had begun to learn how, when such relationship building happens, transformation happens. And when women get organized, things actually happen. That's a very important principle I have learned. I've known for a long time, but actually have seen happen in some very significant ways. But they strategized that day and decided to do one thing. 4 months later, they were going to have general elections, and always there's election-related violence in that community. A month before the election, they gathered the whole community together and had a community feast. Everybody brought food and put it on the tables, and everybody ate. And in that meet, 2,000 women came together. And in that meeting, they decided that they are going to they are going to tell their demand of their husbands and sons that there should be no violence during the election. And they said, we are going to go on strike against you if you go to violence. And mind you, there was no violence during that election time. That was a massive victory for those women. Today, there are 20 or more such IP teams in that community, mostly made out of women who are really undertaking significant change in that entire area. That's just a very brief story to tell you these women understood how to build power, how to collaborate across religions, how to build power, and how to act on an issue that was urgent, relevant, and winnable. And they won that. Now they are able to go ahead and do lots of other things that they feel are important. I appreciate very much the opportunity, and thank you very much, everybody. If there's more conversation to be had, I am more than happy to do so.
Thank you so much, Shanta. And you've given us a strong point about the importance of women in collaborating, in building power, and finding the urgent, winnable issues which they can see actualize and get realized. Thank you very much for those examples. I think this is a perfect segue to now turn to Leanne, who does a lot of work with women and on gender violence. So if we could now turn to Leanne McKenna. Leanne.
Thank you so much, Jill. And yes, I was going to say exactly the same thing. Superb segue. I really appreciate that. I am an ordained Christian minister, and I've been working on issues of interfaith understanding and training in nonviolence and conflict transformation for a very long time. And so I'm trying to figure out, I have, as I'm sure all of you do, we have boxes, bags full of stories that we could pull out, and how to select the ones to for this presentation. So what I have done is I'm going to share some slides with you, and the slides are just sort of a selection of slides from mostly from Sudan and Northeast India. And so they just give you a sample, because as I try and think about what is my place in these presentations, I think that it is about methodology. So I do want to talk about that. So I won't be referring necessarily to the slides that you see, but some of the printing on some of the slides will give you some idea. But it is experiential learning. It is play-based learning, and I really appreciate the mention, as well as the role of the colonizer, and I am of that tribe. And so whether I'm in wherever I am in the world, I'm conscious of the fact that I am wrapped in the unmerited privilege of white skin, and that my methods then are designed to be anti-colonial, to be anti-racist, and to therefore create a situation in which the power, again, I like that power is so often seen as something that's bad, but rather it's about agency, and to pass that agency, to ensure that the agency is with those who are part of the training group. So when I go, I'll start with examples in Sudan. So when I arrive in Sudan, working with an organization called the Sudanese Organization for Nonviolence and Development, they have already networked across at that point the two Sudans when I first started working there. And so they have built a network, and they select from that network about 40 people, half women, half men, to come from various tribal groups from across the Sudans. And they go through 2 days of training in basic Kingian, Gandhian nonviolence. And from those 40 people, 20 are chosen. 10 Christians, 10 Muslims, 10 women, 10 men. And so when I first meet with them, and we are 4 altogether, 2 Muslims, 2 Christians, 2 men, 2 women, who are co-facilitators with me and translators. And we meet in a circle. And often when I go for the first time to a place, the room will be set up with chairs and a lectern at the front. And so the first thing that we do is interrogate the architecture of the room and what kind of learning takes place. And what we want is, rather than one person who sort of knows everything and is passing on that knowledge to those in chairs, rather we move our chairs into a circle. So right from the beginning to share the message that this is about all of us as teachers, all of us as learners. Early on into a training that might be 2 weeks or 3 weeks, sometimes shorter, I get up and I walk around the circle as if I am very pregnant. And I say to them, men and women, you are pregnant. You are pregnant with the future for which you yearn. And there's nothing that I bring to this process except that I create the container within which they labor together. So all of the people in this circle see themselves as pregnant, that the DNA of what issues from this process belongs to them, not to me. And it's a very effective metaphor. I am partera, which is Spanish for midwife, but where the birthing is happening is within them. And it's classic popular experiential education where the wisdom is already there. The knowledge that has been gestating inside of them since forever. And through play-based learning, experiential learning, they are able to debrief from those exercises the things that they need to know in order to, as I put it very simply, to have the conversations they need to have. And we will set up these exercises of role plays or games of some sort, like the one you see pictured in front of you. And it looks, when from the outside looking in, if you were looking at these things, you'd think, this is just purposeless play. That's exactly what it is. When you're entering into something that is apparently purposeless, you then let go of expectations, you let down your hair, one might say, and out of that experience, we reflect on what happened. What did I do? What did I see others doing? Of what does this remind me out there? And then apply those learnings to a new experience. Whoops. This one, as you'll see, is in Northeast India, and I will give some examples from that in a bit. The methodology is about interrogation as well. Together we look at all aspects of a particular situation. And there is nothing that is not up for examination, for interrogation, whether it's civics, cultural norms, economics, gender, religion, tribal groups. Everything is up for grabs, up for examination. And through the dual lenses of what makes for peace, what drives violence, what is it about the stories that we tell one another about ourselves that actually drive violence, and what is often discovered is some of those things that are apparently most precious, or those things that are about ourselves, our society, our culture, that seem to be non-negotiable, are actually some of those things that need to be interrogated under those lenses of what drives violence and what makes for peace. So one of the exercises we do, for example, right at the beginning, people will come into a new setting and with people, most of whom they have spent at least some time with, but many of them are strangers. And thinking in particular in a situation like this in Sudan, where there are women and men coming together in the same space. And this is not the norm. This is not the norm at all. You have women who are coming, they are unaccompanied by fathers or sons or brothers. You have situations where people are for the first time in the presence of a Muslim, of a Christian, of someone from a different tribe, and perhaps a tribe with which their tribe has a long history of spirals of violence. And to come into that space, I mean, when I first started doing this work, I could hardly imagine the barriers that were inside of people as they started to become the kind of peacemakers that they wanted to be. So one of the exercises is called the village game. And in the village game, this is an economic literacy tool. And everyone is divided up into groups of 4 or 5, and they are invited to draw their ideal village. What are the elements of that ideal? And everyone creates their village, and then they give it a name. And then we do what I call a village tour. And so this group, they are showing their design of the ideal village, and there are houses and fields and brilliant sunshine and mountains and trees and a river and a market and a playing field. It's amazing. I have done this exercise all around the world, and what is really remarkable is the extent to which everybody draws the same village. There are very few, regardless of where they are, anywhere around the world, they tend to draw the same village, the same sorts of ideal human spaces for human thriving. And then they are invited to go back into their circles again to add any ideas, to give their village a name. And then at that point, there are 3 or 4 people who have been identified in advance, and they have sort of sneaked away and come back in, and they are dressed as a visitor from outside, a local collaborator. And they are coming to help these poor benighted villages develop. And they come in and they visit the villages fairly benignly, and then they begin to tear off pieces of paper. They try bribery and that sort of thing, first of all, to allow, so the village will allow them to build a McDonald's or to mine the oil or the gold or whatever it is in the ground beneath their feet. And what happens is a resistance as the interlopers begin to rip off parts of their village and so on. And it's a powerful experience of often people at the end of this exercise are in tears because they have recognized the extent to which they neglected to use their agency in terms of resistance to outsiders coming in, enabled by insider collaborators, to steal their land and to steal their lifestyle and to turn it into something that is no longer livable for them. So it can be, but it's, in the end, it is about resistance, and that everyone, we are all economic beings, but we have the capacity to resist. We have agency. Ours is one small story in a global story of capitalist oppression. And how can people at a very local base resist the incursion of models of economic development that are not good for them?
I think we'll just wind up, Leanne, if you could bring it to a conclusion.
All right, okay. That went by fast. So let me say that one of the most difficult areas of work in this I think for all of us is about gender, and I appreciate Shanta's references to that. And one of the things, it is one of the most the elements of non-peace that is resisted most strongly in virtually all of the places where I have been to work. There are cultural norms that people want to adhere to. That's a kind of change that's very difficult to do. And in a situation like that, we have what we call a gender fishbowl, and in the inside, all of the women sit, and around the outside, all of the men sit. And the role of the men in this situation is to listen respectfully to what's happening. And in the interior circle, the women are asked 2 questions. And the first one is, what is the ideal woman in your culture? What is the model woman? And so they begin to tell what are those aspects of their lives that constrain them from being agents in the public square. They don't describe it that way, but they said, this is my role, and I am not permitted to step outside that role. And then the next question is there anything wrong with this picture? Is there anything about that that needs to change? And we think of it in this context of becoming peacemakers. And that is when the men begin to hear things they have never heard before. And that is that their women are not actually happy with their lot in life and would like much more. And when societies decide to marginalize 50% of their population, then they are condemning themselves to permanent underdevelopment and a permanent warrior culture. Women need to be there, as Shanta said. When women start to organize, things begin to happen. So I will finish there and just take a few seconds to go through some of these other pictures. Women with their voting cards in Nagaland. If I could have about 30 seconds more, the very last photo that this one, whoops. The very last one, now it's gone, but it's a picture of men in when I went to Northeast India for the first time. The group, rather than being gender diverse, instead was a group of 40 men from 5 different tribes who had been in, all of them Christians, and who had been in protracted conflict for a very long time. And the picture that is right at the end, when they first come in, they huddle in their respective tribal groups. And that is disrupted through play-based experiential learning. So that at the end, they do an exercise called the ankle walk. And there you have Garo and Karbi and Rengma and Naga, arm in arm doing ankle walk, forgetting, losing touch in the case of that training with the reasons for their historical hatreds and animosity, and peace happens. It's amazing, as we know. Thank you.
Oh my goodness, that was a lot to put in to 15 minutes. You did a magnificent job, you know, all to you for that very fast but beautiful relay on many of the games and the interactions which you do. I would like to now turn to Pushpanath, if I may. Pushpanath, are you there to join us?
I think so.
Good. I'm sure you are. You're not yet walking to Scotland, so you're still
in my head.
In your head. Pushpanath, please join our circle.
Wow. Can everybody hear me? Can you do that?
Yes.
Can you do that? Can you do your ear? What stories? I mean, I'm just a regular guy with irregular hair, but that hair helps. Yeah. What I would like you to do quickly, if I may, please indulge me. Take 5 deep breaths. Here you go. Thank you. I'm always at the wrong place at the wrong time. When organizers come and ask me to speak, they always put me somewhere in the end when everybody has given the best stories and they want to go home. Yeah. So, but afterwards, I think next time someone asks me, I should say, no, I should be the first or the second one. But next time I will do that to Jill. Thank you for this place. Obviously, I'm humbled. I want to say, sisters, brothers, fellow travelers, fellow cooperators, and us who all want to bring justice through peace and non-violence. And I just want to do 4 or 5 things I wanted to say in this time that I've been given. To start off saying, obviously honored and humble. I'm no expert. I learned from life. As a young child, when I didn't have enough food in Bangalore city, I used to go from temple to temple because they would have the best sweets. But along with that, there always used to be some kind of a story on the Indian Hindu epics. And that is to really, even if they didn't give me some sweet, the story is to carry me for quite some time. So for me, telling stories, singing songs is intrinsic. Now, I just also wanted to say that I'm inspired by the Mahatma. And more recently, over 15 years or so, I've been following Ekta Parishad and now Jai Jagat, Rajaji, Jill, and the teams and everybody. When I saw in Ram Leela in Delhi, when all these landless women and men who came, traveled the whole day, but they would come with a particular amount of discipline, not as regimental, but internalized discipline. And they will come and spread around and sit in line. I was in tears and I bent down on my knees to say pranam to all of them. So I'm inspired by that. And I have a tagline song, if I may. Shall I? Suno mere bandhu re, suno mere mituwa, suno mere saathi re. Please listen, my community, my friend, my fellow traveler. This actually attracts a lot of interest. And when communication, as we said, that there is as much as about verbal communication, but there is also non-verbal. There's quite a lot of non-verbal communication happens. And indeed, the non-verbal communication is one of the most important observations we need to be doing while we are interacting and so on. A simple one is, as I say, please take your left hand this side, take your right hand this side. We are not seeing each other. Can we please see each other? No, no. Please, no, no. Please. And then I'll say 1, 2, 3, clap together. 1, 2, 3. Just that kind of a thing will actually help a lot of people to come together. And indeed, I was just thinking that in each of the social movement is characterized by some kind of formal or informal anthem. If you look at Martin Luther King, there is People Get Ready song. Eva Cassidy, the late Eva Cassidy sing that song very well. Likewise, when we talk about the Gandhian movement, we tend to Vaishnava Janato. See, that kind of evokes a particular kind of images and feeling in all of us. Now, as to walk in 2009, or nearly 11, 12 years ago, I started to walk. And because I saw the impact of climate on communities, especially women, hit first, worst, and hardest. At some point of time, traveling from Papua in the east to Uganda, I felt that I was working as an Oxfam campaigner, but I felt that I had to do something. As Gandhi would say, if you see injustice, do something. I felt like I could walk because all through my life, I've been walking. and I decided to do the walk. And at that time, I was completely unknown and walking in from Britain to Copenhagen. And I choose the minimum walk every time I do is minimum should be 275 miles because that is the Dandi walk of the Mahatma. And normally I get lost, so it becomes more and more as you walk. And as you walk, how do you get people to be attracted? And as Jill generously introduced me, I tend to sing. I sing Tamil, I sing Kannada, I sing Telugu, and I also sing in Hindi as well. And one of the songs which actually gave me a lot of kind of a global attention is the poem by the poet Bharati. Uchimidi. Uchimidi, Uchimidi, Wanamidra Podilum, Achamilay, 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 and Bade. Meaning, I think you understood. Meaning, even if the big blue cloud falls on your forehead, be fearless, fearless, and fearless. That song attracted a lot of attention of the television people. And once that was put, when I started to walk, I came to Denmark. And then I got down from the ferry and I had about 15, 20 television cameras. For a moment, I felt like a bit like a rock star. I know it's a very non-Gandhian thing, but I enjoyed that. But that was the most important thing to communicate. And that song became a kind of a thing which actually put me across to people, from parliamentarians to policymakers to priests to parents to passengers and so on. So that is an important thing. Likewise, when I was in southern India, southwestern, I walked for the coffee, the same 550, 600 kilometers. One of the songs by the great Kannada poet, Nade munde, nuggi nade munde, jaggade, kuggade, nuggi nade munde. No matter what happens, keep walking, be strong, don't shrink. And that song is to attract. And every evening I used to have a radio interview in which I used to sing the song and tell the story of the day that I have gathered a song from the people and so on. You won't believe it or not, every day I was reaching about 1 million people every day. And I did 22 days of this. On the road, sometimes the police would stop the traffic and let me go. That's a kind of thing that happened. And in each of those places, I actually absorbed all these songs and words and stories and so on, and kept moving. Popular songs from films in India is very important. The great lyricist, poet, and writer has written many songs which have progressive meaning, which actually the most complicated messages can be brought into very simple, popular way. A song like Nillungal, Nirinde Nillungal, Sollungal, Tunindu Sollungal. I took from another song, which is a popular song by women. Stand up, say it. That's all. Those two, when you say that, people get immediately attracted. Songs, stories helps us to build solidarity. And in every walk, what I try to do, believe me, I've now done about 32 million steps in the last 11 years. I probably have met about 400,000 people directly telling stories. The key for me, I've never ever had any problem from anybody, because I look for what's the good people do. And I ask for, let's do the good more. If somebody has built peace, like the stories that was told today by Father, I would pick all the stories and tell, and let's do the good more. I think that's about at the point I wanted to say, thank you very much for this opportunity. If possible, Uchimidi Wanamandi Viligindra Podilum, Achamilay, 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 and Bade, Uchimidi. Hey, Uchimidi. Oh, Uchimidi. Thank you.
Thank you, Push. Great. Our modern day bard. Our modern day bard. Yeah.
And I'm slowly taking, because, Jai Jagat, just now you have your own anthem, right? We had it in Hindi, now we're going to get, I'm asking now, I've already got 3 different versions of Jai Jagat in different languages. I ask people, I especially I want to say 60% of the population in Africa. Just now I finished work with youth leaders, and so much so in Asia, are under 30. And your example of working in the school was the best thing that reached my heart. Likewise, Lee, the whole process thing, the way you reach, that men and women, the gender conversation and stuff like that. And so are you, Shanta, in a very difficult context that you. So in all this little summary, I will take it now. I've already starting to write down. And in my walk from London to Glasgow, suddenly I will spring it somewhere. If somebody will be asking something, I say, wait a minute, I'll tell you Shanta's story. Like, wait a minute, I will tell Leanne McKenna's story. Wait a minute, I'll tell you Sicaria's stories in Kerala, where they want to kill each other for every second that he brought up peace. And that would be my way and my approach. Thank you again.
Oh, thank you so much. A big hand for our performer, our bard, our singer, our brother. Yeah. I thought this would be a perfect moment for Gary to introduce us to two songs that we had recently in the cultural performance. One song is The Soul of Jai Jagat, and the second song, a song by Canadian writer Jim Cuddy. Could we just break for a minute and just have a little music before coming back and hearing Kurt and some of the reflections? Gary, The Soul of Jai Jagat. Thank you.
wrong turn and I just kept going. Oh, everybody's got a hungry heart. Oh, everybody's got a hungry heart. Lay down your money and you play your part. Oh, everybody's got a hungry heart. I met her in a Kingstown bar. We found a love I knew it had to end. We took what we had and we ripped it apart. Now here I am back in Kingstown again. Everybody's got a hungry heart. Oh, everybody's got a hungry heart. Lay down your money and you play your part. Oh, everybody's got a hungry heart. Everybody needs a place to rest. Oh, everybody needs to have a home. Well, it make no difference what nobody says. Oh, ain't nobody like to be alone. Everybody's got a hungry heart. Oh, everybody's got a hungry heart. Lay down your money and you play your part. Oh, everybody's got a hungry heart. Everybody's got a hungry heart. Oh, everybody's got a hungry heart. Lay down your money and you play your part. Oh, everybody's got a hungry heart. Thank you all very much. Sam Pauly, Devin Cuddy, Jim Cuddy. See you later.
Thank you, everybody, for listening. This was to bring the young people and the talents that Pushpanath was talking about to all of you. So before we begin some of the reflections, I just want to give the floor to Kurt Lockhart to tell us a little bit about the civilian peace force in Germany. Kurt, can I turn it over to you?
Yes, I don't know. I think I couldn't share the screen, so I put a link on it, and maybe page 34 if we can share that. So
Kurt, I've made you the co-host. You can share your screen.
Okay, then I will do that. Wait a second. So civil security is an initiative which is coming from the Evangelic Church in Baden, that's in the south of Germany. And the aim is that we don't need in 2040 any army as well. So it's a bottom-up initiative, but to fulfill it is a top-down approach. So in the opposite, or not to, in addition to Jai Jagat has 4 pillars, we have 5 pillars. You see now only 3, but anyhow. So first of all, we need a fair foreign relation. We have find out that a Western, usual Western consumer has 41 slaves for his consume. So we said, okay, we need a global market economy which with fair trade, and of course a climate-friendly lifestyle. And the major contribution is to the UN development of the SDGs, you know it everywhere. And the next one is, for example, the poor countries need a Marshall Plan. The Marshall Plan, I don't know if everybody knows it, that gave Germany the possibility from the US to create after the Second World War the economic and something we need as well with the southern countries. And then we need economic partnership with Russia, not to stop this always these this economic boundaries, and to open that that we have better things and fair economic system with the south of EU as well. The international security architecture is a common security of peace logic, which you have already explained from everybody I've heard. And we need not an army, but maybe for the first stop the conflict, maybe we need a police, the European police, and we need a civil role of Germany within the European Union, OSCE, and the NATO. And we will stay in the NATO to show that this solve civil conflicts is easier than with military. And we need a stronger UN and the democratization of UN. Maybe I hope get the second page here, the fourth and the fifth pillars. We need resilient democracy, the peace education you have told already. Maybe we can in every school bring a non-violent conflict solutions, mediation centers. We have already, but we need of course more. Civilian crisis prevention, civil peace services, and a resilience response on terrorism. I think as more military we bring into the countries, as more terrorism as a result. And the conversion of the armed force is the target in 2014. And for example, you can use we have the Air Force for help with hospitals. We send hospitals, for example, to Portugal in the COVID situation to support them with a lack of oxygen. For example, for this you can use it, and the complete industry has to converge that we don't need any weapon as well. And the last point is withdrawal of all nuclear weapons. And I don't know if you know that in Germany we have the Major of Peace. That is the world Major of Peace is one in Hiroshima and one in Hanover in the northern of Germany. And we have in Germany 700 Majors of Peace, where the people in the town said we don't want to have any atomic weapons. So 700 cities we have here already in Germany. And in Kaloor, where I'm living in, we have as well 40 people which are coordinating and building peacemakers in whole the world. And I will stop this. And for example, they have done in Lebanon, in Lebanon, Jordania, Israel, Cambodia, Philippines, Ukraine, and the west of Balkan. We have already people who created with civil things peace. And I don't know if you know the Munich Safety Conference is always beginning in the year, where the militaries and the head of countries coming to Munich. We have already a good conversation with them, and we have as well good conversation with military people, generals, and they said your way of solving conflicts is better than our way with weapons. So maybe that is the last word which I want to say to this project. And coming back to the song which we have heard, we have a German J. Jagat song as well.
Thank you, Kurt. We need to play the Jay Jagat as well in Germany soon. We'll do that in the next program.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. I mean, I think, Kurt, what you're talking about is the dismantling of the military industrial complex. And I think all the German minds behind this civilian peace force really needs to come into other countries so people can be aware of the extensiveness of this civilian peace force. Thank you very much for that.
And the link which I sent, that is a shortage of the program of 36 pages in English. And of course, we have it in Russia, Polish, Netherlands, French, and in this language, it is already available.
And if we could use also your address, maybe for further questions from any of the people here, this would be. Okay, friends, so we have started with India, we've moved to the US, Canada, England, and bouncing back with Bangalore, and then we've gone to Germany, and so I think it makes sense to come back to India. And I'm just wondering if we could have our Rebbe Matthews begin. He's from the Tata Institute, to give any reflections, Rebbe, to any of the panelists, if you'd like a response or you just want to make a reflection. Please go ahead, Rebbe Matthews. Is Rebbe Matthews here? I don't see him. So then maybe I'll turn to Rince Raju, who I see is here. Rince, do you want to make any comments, reflections?
Yeah, hello.
Yeah, hello,
Can
please.
you hear me?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, okay. Actually, I would like to add something more, as Father Scaria had already explained, because I was in the movement of Father Scaria when I was a student in the college. So as Father Scaria explained, how Kannur, the specific district of Kerala, became the synonym of violence. You know, all these political violence was operated from in Kannur, was from a place called Kuthuparamba. And this is the position where my college was located. So you all can imagine how much difficult it would be to start a club like, which is named like Peace Club in a college. So as I said earlier, the name of my college was Nirmalagiri College. So we termed the name of the club or was like Nirmalagiri Peace Club. So, you know, most of the students in our college was tend towards this violent politics. And if you search in the Wikipedia or in Google, you will get an idea of Mater Hall in Kuthuparamba, which actually says about the political violence, the intensity of it, how much women became widow there. So in that atmosphere, talking about peace in that campus was a quite difficult task for us. As you all know, we became the laughing stock of the campus. And when we talk to the political leaders of the particular political party regarding this peace club and its introduction, they were saying that we are not going to stop our politics. Without all these politics, how could campus life become memorable? So this was the question that we have to answer and we have to address in the campus. So we took it as a challenge. And during our student days, what we did was we tried to catch the trend of that time. That was short film. I am saying it about 2012. And we planned to film, the first ever short film in the history of our college. So it was a strenuous task for us because this is a newly established club and we don't have any financial backup. But to prove ourselves, we have to take risks. Therefore, we thought about crowdfunding, and our principal, Dr. Jocelyn Matthew, approved the plan. And we went to each and every student and teachers for their contribution. Their generosity and their good mind helped us to the filming of the short film. And while we were casting the actors for the short film, we thought twice and we included all those students from different political parties and also from different religions also. In that case only, the Peace Club will get a root in the campus. All our hard work paid and we got second place in the national level short film contest conducted by Gandhi Media Foundation. So this actively give us a reach towards the minds of our fellow students, and they start recognizing us. They thought that, okay, this can also be a way of making memory in a campus other than this violent student politics. At this success point, we there launched another program, and we planned to start a newspaper, an intra-college newspaper, and we named it as Messenger. And establishing a newspaper and printing it is also a very difficult task. But we move forward. There was a lot of challenges, and we made it possible, and we printed the newspaper and distributed these copies into each and every department. This gave the students a space to showcase their talents, to pen it down. And also multiple programs were followed by this. And I want to mention some of them here, which was Sneha Sparsham. It's a Malayalam term. In English, it means touch of love, which means this program was for those students, those who are economically backward, and we gave them financial aid secretly. And we never published it in anywhere of the college campus or in social media. And the next project we undertook was Sabarmati Mission. And this mission was actually to promote personal and social hygiene. Thus, the students will consider this environment, this campus, our locality, my village as my own responsibility. Later on, we initiated a program called Guru Vandana, which showcased the old tradition of teacher and student relation, which means the importance of a teacher in the student's life is immense, and students have to recognize that. And actually, I have many more things to say, but due to the shortage of time, I would like to cut it down. And actually, I want to bring out the changes that happened after the introduction of Peace Club, which was before the time of Peace Club, as Father Scaria already may have showed you the statistics of this political murders, political violence that have been taken place in the campuses of Kannur. But after the establishment of Peace Club, this number get reduced. And the students, those who are considered as the troublemakers of the campus, started to contributing with their creativity in the programs of Peace Club. So thus, the change is possible. Peace is guaranteed if you have a mind to seek it. Thanks for the opportunity. Thank you all.
Thank you, Rins. Thank you very much. Rins is at the University of Rajasthan now, so I hope the university will also get a peace club, Rins.
Yeah, definitely.
Good. There are so many important people who are on this call, and we don't have time to call them all, but if I could just recognize Father Anto is with us. He has done amazing work in the Northeast with the Peace Channel, with training youth. So Father Anto, welcome. Next time we will have more time for you to speak. This time we're a little short of time, but welcome. We also have Jean Fabre from France, who's one of the former UN leaders in UNDP, and is with us today, has done a lot of work in Italy with peace marches, has done work in Africa, in many African countries. So there are a lot of people here to recognize. We have a lot of young people from Kerala, from other parts of India. So it's I just wanted you to know that. We are going to now turn to say, okay, we have all this wonderful, we have ideas, we have peace approaches, we have sustainable peace initiatives. How do we move this forward? And we thought this would be a moment to have Rajgopal come in and give a reflection on how he sees within the work of Jai Jagat in particular, how do we bring all of these together into a movement for change? So may I call on Rajaji at this point to say a few words?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Jill. I really want to thank all of you today. It is amazing. It's like such an interesting and useful webinar. And special thanks to you, Jill, but then also to Shanta, Leanne, Pushpanathji, Kurt. I mean, it's very beautiful to have all of you together in this webinar. All what you said has really brought a lot of insight to all of us. The very reason why we are organizing this is to get deeper insights into how to go forward. Going forward is what is the agenda. So Kannur is a good case, as far as I know, that it's a wonderful example of mobilization that you are speaking of. Community, Shanta was speaking about community mobilization. It's a good case of how do you mobilize people to around the issue of peace. And this is also a great example how 7 organizations came together. Organizations working in isolation came together with a determination, saying that, look, we really want to make peace in this region. We have waited too long that the political parties will do it, but now we are not going to wait anymore. We want to do it ourselves. And you saw that from the presentation of Father Scaria, you saw how many methods you have used, and now you have contributed new methods that he is going to use from tomorrow onwards. And I want to thank you for adding to the methodology part of our work. And one interesting thing that is cross-cutting in today's presentation, if I hear it properly, is to reach out to women. So involving women into peace building, and basically that is what people in Kannur always say. Look, I mean, we are tired of this men's doing politics the way they do, and most of the victims are women because father is dead and brother is dead and son is dead. We suffer. So we want to get out of this men's politics. And I remember Jill began a process of bringing women together in that area, and I think this is true locally to globally. How do you bring women peace builders, train them and promote them is a very, very interesting idea, and I think it can be applicable to every pocket. So one thing forward looking, I would say one interesting thing will be to work on this, that getting more women involved in peace building, training them. And I think one important thing will be what I hear, if I hear it properly, it is not only important to have theoretical training, it also should have exposure, it should also have practical input. So theory and practice need to be put together. Otherwise you have a lot of theoreticians, but without much knowledge about practice. So one challenge is that how do we provide them the theoretical part through training programs? How do you provide them the exposure that they need to see what is happening on the ground? How do you help them to practice it themselves by getting involved in, because it is only by doing people will really learn. What we need now, and we need your help, is to really showcase examples. It's like whenever we speak about peace building, sometimes we speak about Norway, where they tried something in terms of jail reforms. It's like, so the prisoners will not come back as criminals, but they will come back as good citizens. It's a very interesting efforts. We speak about Chambal in India, where the dacoits or the bandits were they were made to surrender their arms, and then they became really good people. And now you have this small example of Kannur. So we need more such examples. Inspiration is not coming just because I say that peace is a very good idea. Inspiration is also coming when you say, where is it happening? How did this happen? So they need real concrete examples of how is it happening. So I think how do we identify and promote more examples of that kind? I know that our friend Irakli is doing something in Caucasian region, in between Russia occupied place and Georgia. He's trying to bring peace. Friends in Mindanao are doing something to bring peace in Philippines. Friends in Northeast, I could hear and Leanne speaking about it, and also you have Father Bindo with us. And friends in Nepal are doing wonderful work. It was Naxal infected region becoming accepting democracy. People giving up arms through a negotiated settlement and really accepting. Or NYP, there are some national youth project, it is called, led by our guru, Subbarao. Subbarao ji and his friends really they move into areas where there is communal conflict and they bring peace. So these are all great examples. And I think we need more of this kind so that young people get inspired and say, look, we hear so much about violence every day, Afghanistan and this and that. But there are so many examples of non-violence. So that is where this panel need to help us in a big way in the coming days, way forward. I am very conscious of the fact that the peace in Kannur is like ash on top of fire. It is a lot need to be done. Any moment it can break. So the workers are challenged in a big way. The young people and the social workers in Kannur are challenged every day. So they need your guidance and support. But one good thing is that all the 7 organizations led by different individuals are very committed to peace building, and they are looking for partnership. The reason why they organize this webinar is basically to move beyond this idea of a Kannur group to Kerala, to nation, to international. So your coming has really helped them in taking this forward, because you also gave so many examples. Somebody walking from London to Glasgow, it's not a small thing, for peace building. So it inspired them. But where you can help is also, the Kannur group is really interested to establish a peace center for training young people, along with a museum. The museum idea comes from Rwanda, where they have put all their hate and dislike into the museum. Once you create a museum, you say all our past, genocide and everything is in that museum. Please go and see that. But between us, there is no more hatred. So Kannur group would like to try a small museum where they can bury the hate and past and move forward, and also train people into peacemaking. This is something which can become a global agenda, and we can all get involved in it. So I would say let us encourage this process while building many other process, but then the Kannur process, and help them in fulfilling the kind of plans they have. Finally, we are also seriously thinking about peace tourism. If you can have environmental tourism and spiritual tourism and whatnot. Why not peace tourism? And this is basically helping people to visit places where people are trying to build peace. And they can go to places of Buddha, they can go to places of Gandhi, but they can also go to places like Kannur or the examples that you cited in your presentations and say, why waste money traveling somewhere else? There's so much to learn from peace processes that are happening in these places. So we need to see the urgency to my mind is that we need to come together, all of us, many more, because the level at which violence is being operated, probably non-violence is not being operated. So there is a mismatch. So how do we deal with this mismatch? And that is a challenge we are all facing. And I hope we will together take this agenda forward. And all the small example of Kannur and other places will be small lighthouses from where we all get light to move ahead. Thank you very much. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Rajaji. And I just want to draw out one of the points you said on the Women's Peace Force. Within Jai Jagat, an effort is being made to link women's groups. And so if any of the people in this webinar want to relate to what we call the Mahila Shakti, Shanti Shakti, Women's Peace Force, please contact the Jai Jagat, because that is being, and also to say that there are 12 days of action being planned from the International Day of Peace on the 21st of September to the 2nd of October. This is a good time to join hands on these different initiatives and just say that we're all in Jai Jagat together. We're all coming together from our different initiatives for peace. So again, the Jai Jagat International at gmail.com, please be in touch. I understand Anish Tilankari, who was going to make the vote of thanks, is on a weak internet and cannot join us to do that. So I just take the opportunity to thank all of the viewers. This has been a wonderful audience with many interesting people with us who have given us their emails. Thank you very much, and some queries and suggestions. We want to thank our speakers, very especially Father Scaria for his amazing presentation and work, to Shantaji for just bringing to light some of the international, peace teams that he's been building and the way it's been building, to our dear Leanne for sharing experiential learning techniques and particularly emphasizing how people can be transformed, to Pushpanath for his music, his love of life and love of people, love of walking. I encourage all of you to join virtually or physically with Pushpanath in London on his great march to Scotland for climate change. I want to thank Kurt for coming in and bringing such incredible and important information to this group. I want to thank Rins for his reflection, but particularly I have to thank Rajaji. I feel somewhat shy to do that, but for his amazing contributions in getting us always together and getting so many movements identified and working together for the greater common purpose of peace. Thank you, Rajaji. And finally, last but certainly not least, I want to thank Gary for his beautiful presentation of all the technical behind the scenes work. And I would hope that you would stay to see just a small presentation by the Kerala group, the Kannur group called Pranam. It's a small musical performance, and then we'll close out. So Gary, if you could just play that as a final part of our day.
गांधी पथ में है भरा ही भरा गांधी नामे, इसलिए पुण्य स्थल है ये भारत। तो दीप से उचला मंदिर, गूंज उठी है वहाँ तेरी वाणी। धन्य तट है स्थल तेरी याद का, राहवीरान में तो बनी रोशनी।
दर्दीली बातों को तो बनाया सुखद,
दर्दी दिल बंधनों में रही भारत माता को।
तूने आजादी दी, तू महान है महान। करते तुझे प्रणाम हम, आभारी होकर दिल से। करते तुझे प्रणाम हम, आभारी होकर दिल से। सत्य धर्म पथ से होकर तूने जीवन सफर किया।
धर्म नीति अहिंसा द्वारा ऊंचा उठाया तिरंगे को।
जातिवाद चिंताओं से मलिन थे सब जन के मन, कैदी बन गए अंधकार के अपने देश में सारा जन। बंधन को तोड़ दिया तेरी बया, करते तुझे प्रणाम हम, आभारी होकर दिल से। करते तुझे प्रणाम हम, आभारी होकर दिल से। छोड़ के दुनिया के सुख को चल पड़ा तू ध्येय से।
मन में ढाल कर मानव सेवा और देश की आजादी।
इस प्रकार प्राप्त हुआ है भारत माँ को स्वतंत्रता। बापूजी हम मिलकर दिल से करते हैं तुझको प्रणाम। जन मन में दीप जले तेरी याद की, करते तुझे प्रणाम हम, आभारी होकर दिल से। करते तुझे प्रणाम हम, आभारी होकर दिल से। रघुपति राघव राजा राम, पतित पावन सीताराम। सीताराम सीताराम, भज प्यारे
Thank you. Jai Jagat, everybody. Jai Jagat. Be in touch. Be together.
Thank you, Dr. Jill.
Thank you, Anto.
Thank you, everybody. It's very
Nice
good
to
to
see
see
you.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great.
Very
Well
good.
organized and congratulations.
Thank you,
Our
everybody.
mentor, Sir
Thank you.
Rajagopal, our mentor. You have been mentoring all of us.
Thank you very much.